What's going on, everybody? Tim Lawson here from The Better Life, but today I'm going to be talking about betting the USL. So for those of you that aren't into the soccer betting, no hard feelings. Uh, if you sign off now and say, "Hey, this isn't for me," excuse me while I adjust my camera a little bit. For those of you that are here to listen to some USL betting, well, you're in the right place. And we have what do we got? Two, three, four, 5 game card here coming up this evening. You're getting the amateur production of this as I was sort of scrambling to take notes and sort of set things up. So you get the bland green screen behind me in my Ashley Bledsoe T-shirt. Shout out to Ashley Bledsoe of the Washington Spirits. Yeah, big fan of hers when I was following the Spirit more closely. Okay, we got 5 games here on the USL at Bet the USL on Twitter. If you want to follow along on other plays, but here's what I got coming up today, and maybe why I like some of these things. Let's start with. We're going to start with New York versus Louisville. Now, New York has played 3 matches. They got a 2-0 loss in Miami, a 1-0 win in Atlanta, and then a 3-0 loss at home against Loudoun. Now, they suffered red cards in the Atlanta and Loudoun match, and they actually controlled most of that match against Loudoun before conceding that red card, and then Loudoun sort of took over and ended up winning that 3-0. Now they're going to host this strong Louisville team who I thought we were going to see a little less fireworks from, a little less strength, but they seem to be just as good as expected, and they haven't conceded a goal yet. They won 1-0 against Atlanta and then 2-0 against Miami, who we really thought was going to be able to compete. These lines are fair by my assessments. Looking at what is the updated lines here? You can get -170 on a 3 money line on Louisville. I think that's about right. The goal line, the Asian handicap on the goal line is 1 goal. You got a 2.75 total. I think all of that is where it's supposed to be. No play here, but I do think that this match can tell us a little bit more about both teams, especially if we don't see a red card in this match. I'd so desperately there's a few of these teams that we just do not need to see red cards from because we need to see what matches look like with a handful of these teams still without a red card being an influence. So, but no play for me on Red Bulls and Louisville City. Atlanta United 2 versus Tampa Bay Rowdies. I do have a play here. I tweeted it out with the handful that I played yesterday. Atlanta did not play over the weekend. They're the only team to not do that. There's an odd number of teams in the USL, which means on any given weekend, there's going to be a team that does not play. Atlanta was that team, but they did play midweek against New York, in which they conceded a red card. Yuck. And then ended up losing to New York. But they looked okay. I thought they looked okay. And before that red card, they held Louisville to 1 goal and a shutout loss in the game before that, and now they're hosting the strong Tampa Bay team, who actually has a really unique schedule. Tampa has this odd schedule where it's constantly alternating home away, home away, home away, and then in a couple of spots it's like 2 at home, 2 away. But for the majority of their season, Tampa Bay has this odd home away, home away. It'll be really interesting to see if there's anything to that, but that doesn't really inform much here. They look relatively strong in both of their. I should say Atlanta has looked relatively strong in both of their games despite losing. They had plenty of time to plan for this match. They had a full year. They had a full week to plan for this match, but I don't think we've seen enough from Atlanta for me to think that they're going to pull off a win, and I definitely don't think we've seen enough from Tampa to believe that they would lose this outright. But I did take Atlanta at +1 on the Asian line. You can find +1.25 with a little bit of juice. I think -120, -125 is what that priced at. I took this. I think Atlanta has shown that they can pull off a draw here for the win, or worst comes to worst, they can keep this within 1 for this to possibly be a push. If you want to try to get as much possible winnings out of your you can risk a little bit more laying the like the minus 120 on the Atlanta plus 1.25 Asian line, but I took just the +1 at plus money here because I think that they can keep it close for that to come home. Moving on to Tulsa, San Diego. Tulsa, first game, they lose to Charleston after conceding a red card, and then they just run over Birmingham essentially 3-1. And two of those goals came before a red card. Goodness gracious, red cards in so many of these matches. San Diego has played two games. They had a 2-1 win when hosting LA. They had a 2-0 win when hosting Sacramento. My read on Tulsa isn't great, to be honest. But numbers wise, I think San Diego has a slight edge here. For as much as we can read into numbers out of 2 or 3 matches out of some of these teams, San Diego has shown that they're strong. They have good pedigree in their coaching and in their culture down there. And so I played San Diego, draw no bet, which is also known as you can also be considered a pick 'em on the Asian handicap, but draw no bet at plus 121. I'm also playing the both teams to score at minus 127 here. I don't think either team has shown that they necessarily can't be scored upon. San Diego was a both teams to score darling last year. They just always let teams hang around, and whether they only had one goal themselves or three, you could always sort of expect the other team to compete for a goal. And Tulsa, having run 3-1 up on Birmingham, who's a pretty strong team on their own, I think Tulsa can get one. I think San Diego can get one. But I like San Diego on the draw no bet here. Probably a push at worst, as they should be able to compete in this game. Going to move on to the match at the bottom there, LA Galaxy 2 versus Rio Grande Valley. RGV starts the season 1-1. They had an okay win against a really underwhelming Oakland team, and then they nearly got the draw in Orange County after conceding a red card, but ultimately lost the match 2-1. LA2 has been sneaky competitive in their first 2 games, even with 2 losses. I think they've been sneaky competitive. They also took a red card in both of those matches. So many red cards all over the USL. I played the over 2.5 here. It's not available anymore. It's 2.75. I think that's fair, especially since it's a little bit juicy on the over. If for some reason you find a 2.5 that isn't juiced further, I wouldn't play the juice further than 130 probably. Or refresh your book. Maybe this comes down. Who knows? I don't think it will. I think it's a fair market, but that's what I played. I'm warning you right now. You probably won't be able to find that number. If you do, I think it's a good one. And it was the first thing that I saw on the board that I was like, "Oop, that's a play." It was almost without even really thinking or looking into it. This was the fastest bet that I made, and it moved. So I like my instincts there. Lastly, El Paso Locomoted FC is going to host Las Vegas Lights. Now, the reason I'm saving this for last is because this is my favorite play. This is easily my favorite play because this play, and I don't know why my let me update this banner while I'm doing this. This type of play is what I made my bread and butter on last season and for half of the season before that when I was first getting into USL. And it's the reason why I ultimately know and believe that why there's value in the USL. Las Vegas Lights are coming off of a really surprising upset against Phoenix Rising, who's one of the best teams or considered one of the best teams in the league, but they end up pulling off an upset 2-1. Before that, they didn't really compete too hard against a New Mexico team who beat them. But one thing I think, and I may have been a steeper learning curve for me than it should have been. There's more to a home opener in the USL, especially with independent teams, than I think I even really anticipated. Because the first week of USL went really well for me. The second week of USL, second weekend, just a few days ago, did not go well for me. And when I look at the games that I played, I faded a lot of teams on their home opener, and that probably was a mistake. Even though I think that there is more selective ways to apply home field advantage or in some cases home field disadvantage for some teams where like the culture just doesn't exist. I think home openers, especially with independent teams, have a lot more weight and a lot more value. A good example would be Detroit City. Probably shouldn't have like I took Charleston in that match. If that was a mid-season match, I'd definitely bet that again. But now looking at it, taking fading Detroit City on at their home opener, that was a mistake. So you live and you learn new ways to play these lines season to season. Going back to Las Vegas Lights and El Paso Locomotive, I mean, Las Vegas has shown a little bit of both sides of them. El Paso have lost twice. They gave up three goals to Sacramento when they were in California. They lost that match. They hosted New Mexico in what was essentially their derby, right? That there's a huge rivalry there. New Mexico United gets it done 2-1. And I guess that's where fading a home opener worked in my favor, but I still think I'm making that adjustment moving forward. But here we have El Paso hosting Las Vegas Lights, coming off of so they're coming off of a really disappointing home loss. Las Vegas Lights are coming off of a pretty exciting win against Phoenix, and El Paso still hasn't won a match yet. Yet I made this play at plus 688. That's what I got this line at, plus 688. I also took Las Vegas on the Asian handicap at plus 1.5. This line does not make any sense to me. Plus 600, all right, plus 600 is roughly a 14.5% implied probability. I think Las Vegas wins this match 1 out of 5 times, especially with how the form and how little we really know. But I just don't think this line's justified. And these are the type of lines that if you make enough of them throughout the USL season, you're going to come out ahead on these plays. When you find these teams that are 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, sometimes even 9-1 underdogs in matches that they're going to be plenty competitive in. Am I guaranteeing that Las Vegas is going to win? No, can't, right? Even if they win this half the time, right? This is a huge play. Even if they win this 1 out of 4 times, this is an absolute play. So they very well could drop the ball tonight, but I think this is too much value for a team that showed that they can run with the best against a team that has shown that they can hold on to a lead and hasn't won a match yet. So I'm taking Las Vegas plus 1.5 and Las Vegas plus 688. You can still get as high as plus 660 on that money line. If you're someone who likes to, if you're a bettor like me, I would advise putting a little bit on that money line. Otherwise, make a bet on that. I would be surprised if El Paso wins this by 2 or more. I just think Las Vegas is going to be able to run with them. El Paso very well could win this 2-1, and then the Asian handicap wins. But I like it. Unfortunately, both teams, the score was too high in my opinion. I think I didn't even pull it. I forgot to put it down in the notes, but I think I saw it as high as like minus 190, which I don't play any both teams to score that high. So. All right, that is tonight's. What is it? March 23rd. That is the March 23rd matchups. I will hopefully do videos like this for USL match days, at least for the Wednesdays and for the midweek and then the weekend matches moving forward. If you're into USL, you're going to like this stuff. If you're not into betting on soccer or the USL, feel free to skip these when you see these come through. These are being hosted on the Better Life YouTube channel, but the what should I say? The Twitter account in which I do all of this from, at Bet the USL. That's where I post all of my plays that I make. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Good luck all your bets.